Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Mega Man in Base as Mega Man. In the last part we went after more Robot Masters, and get this, time for more Robot Masters, starting with Magicman, another design I really like. Magicman loves to amaze people with magic and tricks and has recently practiced fortune telling. Good point, he's a hard worker. Bad point, he's a bit of a show-off. He likes cheers and he dislikes revealing too much. Okay, that last one makes more sense reading the Japanese data, where apparently it's disclosure of tricks. That makes much more sense. This stage is a bit interesting in that it's more or less a retread of a lot of ideas from Clown Man stage in 8. Like, we got the trains here that you can jump on and use the hoods for. But be careful not to touch too far up in the front of them, because that can actively damage you. And later on, we're even going to have the return of the little background bell hitters, although for different reasons this time around. But this is a stage that is definitely easier as base, because you can reach any of these these platforms higher up in the air with a double jump. And since there's no rush coil in Mega Man in base, Mega Man just can't reach those, and oftentimes just kind of has to make some tight jumps in this stage, period. The shop has some good stuff for Mega Man, don't get me wrong, but I really wish there was a version of Rush Coil in there overall. Like, I guess I should go into depth with what the shop can have and what it unlocks more. You unlock more items in the shop after the 3rd and 6th Robot Master you defeat, respectively. By default, it has the extra lives, the energy balancer, the exit unit, a spike guard that prevents you from dying to spikes once, the comm system that allows you to talk to roll, an item ball right from Mega Man 8 that can drop certain things, but that's a one-use item, the enemy analyzer, that I think analyzes enemies and showcases what their weakness is, maybe? There's a super recover that increases the amount of life energy you get from a life drop. You got the counter attacker, that's the thing that I think I've already bought at this point, that increases your damage when you're lower on HP. There's the energy saver, which reduces the amount of weapon energy your special weapons take up, and I think I'd buy that down the line to self-lead. There's the damage absorb, which from memory I think restores weapon energy every time you take damage. There's super armor, which reduces the amount of damage taken, period. Which is really good as Mega Man in some cases. There's the CD counter, which shows you how many CDs is in the stage. It's only useful if you're going for all of those. For Mega Man in specific, there's the auto charger, self-explanatory. There's Eddie, who will drop in and give you an item. There's Rush Search, which is nowhere near as useful as it was in Mega Man 7. It can just get you some of the generic items or just funny little joke items, like I think you can get pinched by a crab. There's a high-speed charge item that increases the rate at which you charge your Mega Buster. There's Beat, who will give you a little barrier, and there's the CD finder. And then it'll allow Rush to dig them up if memory serves too. For base only, might as well talk about these as well. There's the high-speed dash, which just makes your dash move faster. There's a step booster, which makes you climb ladders faster. There's the treble boost, which I showed off in that LP. That's a very good item for him that fuses him and Trouble together and gives him a spread shot and allows him to fly. There's the super buster, which you really want as base, because that increases the power of his buster. And then there's the hyper buster, which makes his buster have the ability to go through walls, since his doesn't have that by default either. And there's the only time we see the bell guys in this stage. They rotate the blocks. It's I actually like that a lot more than what they used that mechanic for back in Mega Man 8, because I really do not like the puzzle blocks in Clown Man stage. With that said, time for Magicman. He's weak to Tengu Blade, so get that out. And this fight can be pretty quick with that because it allows you to just slide into him and do mass damage. For the most part in this fight, Magicman is going to dash left and right, occasionally throwing a card. If that card hits you, it'll go back into him and restore a little bit of his HP back. You can also throw an orb in the air, which I think spawns enemies when you shoot it. And I think he can just toss something directly at you, which will spawn more enemies that will kind of fan out. That fight's pretty quick with a weakness, or even the charged Mega Buster, but you want to be careful because getting hit by that card can surprisingly build up over time. Both in terms of your HP being lowered, but also restoring his health. And for beating him, we actually get the magic card itself, and this is the really good ability. You can fire it either horizontally or straight up in the air. It's really good at taking out smaller enemies, but also you can use it to collect items automatically. If it moves into an item on the way back, it'll just collect it. It also just will automatically grab any items the enemy that it defeats will drop. Before we go to the next Robot Master stage, though, let's check this out. This is the Crystal Gate. This prevents you from reaching King's Castle on the far right of the stage select. This is a series of 8 teleporter rooms that have these little lock mechanisms in them that you need to use a Robot Master weapon to destroy. Upon destroying it, a large bolt spawns that I believe is 100 bolts even? Let's see, 25. I think this should be 125 now. Yeah. So you can get a fixed 800 bolts in the game by doing this, which is really good for getting upgrades, and I recommend doing this at some point. In some regards, it actually might be worth coming here after you beat, like, if you're following this order, Cold Man, Burner Man, and Pirate Man, so you can have 300 bolts and get an item that early. You might think it's a little bit of a puzzle to figure out which ability to use in which room, but they're actually color-coded. The lock mechanisms are the same color as the ammo meter for the special weapon in question. So, for instance, Spread Drill there has an orange meter, so it unlocks the orange lock. On top of that, you could also just use context clues of the rooms designed to figure out what's what. So, like, what would I use in the Wave Burner block room, for instance? As a kid, I won't lie, the music in this area kind of scared me, and I can't quite tell you why. I think it's just the weirdly most ominous song in the game, and there's not many songs in classic Mega Man directly like this, at least. There's a couple like this in X. And I guess now I think about it, some of those scared me too, like the Sigma 4 theme in Mega Man X1 before you reach Sigma himself. That scared me, just outright. Wait, actually, no, I'm thinking of Sigma 3, I think, because mentally I was thinking of the ding. That's Sigma 3. Sigma 4 is the I guess both of those songs actually kind of intimidated me as a kid because I was so late in the game and running low on lives, even though continues are not a problem in the original Mega Man X in retrospect. Alright, so now that we got all those bolts, let's head into Otto's shop, because there's some stuff I want to pick up. Namely, I do pick up the counter-attacker, I believe, and the super armor if I have enough bolts left over. Because doing more damage with low on health, or taking less damage, is a good thing for Mega Man come the castle. On a lot of playthroughs, I usually get the comm unit, but that's just because there's something kind of funny about it, just calling up Royal Eyes Base or Mega Man to get information. In fact, thinking about it, she might have more lines in the comm unit in Mega Man and Base in either script than she does in basically any of the other games combined, barring maybe... No, because Super Adventure Rockman, she's part of the driving force. Like, she's out of commission for a little bit, isn't she? Yeah, maybe I might have her most lines outside of, like, the comics and playing as her in Powered Up, huh? Weird. Either way, time for another returning Robot Master. This is Astroman's stage. Let's see. Astroman's bio. By controlling the dimensions, he can create virtual cosmic spaces. And apparently, according to the Japanese data, he's a world champion of hide and seek. Good point, humility. Bad point, he's a little bashful. He likes wishing upon stars, and he dislikes cheap humor. I'd like to note, according to the dislike in the Japanese data, he means specifically bad puns. How dare you, Astroman? I thought we were friends. So Astroman's stage here is definitely the calmer of his two stages, because his stage was one of the two really weird ones in Mega Man 8 between that and Swordman's stage, where it was slightly puzzle-focused. Oh, also, you actively do have to equip an item to Mega Man or Base from the sub-menu. You can only have one equipment item like that on at a time, though, so like I can either choose the counter-attacker or the super armor. You can't have both. But there are some items like the energy balancer that are just always on. For one thing, we have this enemy spawning section here where enemies just kind of fall out of the background at somewhat random. I'm not sure what the timing is on that, but the real weird thing comes in a little later on. Because the next major portion of this stage is going to be a very familiar mechanic. But first off, we got this little mini-boss room. You guys like Simon? Because it's Simon. At complete random, the game will generate a pattern you need to input on these buttons. And if you get it wrong, the blaster on the top of the screen fires at you. If you get it right, the door opens and you can progress through, no problem. I don't really... It feels like this level is just them kind of running out of ideas compared to the rest of the game. Because it's a weird level, yeah, but it feels the least interesting. Also, this is this part of the stage where you really actually have an advantage for playing as Mega Man. Because the way this stage works is that there's just portions of the floor that will, not randomly, they are set, but at random feeling on a first playthrough will just kind of send you up towards the spiked ceiling. As Base, getting out of there without getting hit is tough because while yes, your dash is fast, it doesn't shrink down your hitbox a lot, whereas as Mega Man, your slide actually reduces your hitbox so you can get away from the spikes much more easily. Otherwise though, this stage is the good old, with the massive air quotes, Yoku Block stage. I say that not much of the Yoku Block sections in this game are bad. They're mostly pretty straightforward. If anything, this room right here is the worst of it this game has to offer, and that's just because getting to the top of this room without base's double jump is pretty tight in the timing, but even then, it only has this one bit of spikes right here. And yes, it's the hardest jump, reaching this block right here, but oh well. Yoku Blocks definitely used to give me a lot more trouble than they do now because I learned to just sit down and observe and wait a moment before actively trying them. With that said, Heatman's stage is still hell incarnate, and I refuse to interact with that in any normal fashion. There are some times where you can just get really good patterns out of that. Like, I think I've seen some people get, like, 3 of the same button in a row, I want to say, at some point. I would have to watch a task again to see if that's actually true, because they would probably just find a way to make it so it's all the same button. But the stage is just kind of a weird mishmash of ideas that don't exactly feel connected. But hey, it's also one of the only stages where they give you a nice little energy refill right at the boss room. As for Astroman himself, though, I think this is the harder of his 2 fights, at least if you have the weakness even. Because, what was the name of Searchman's weapon in 8? Homing Missile, I think, was much more effective at dealing with him than Magic Card is. For one thing, Magic Card, I think, just does less damage overall, too. Yeah, that's only like 2 damage, that's not a lot. I think potentially even a fully charged Mega Buster might do more than that. His main attack to start is staying towards the top half of the screen and then just bouncing up and down to try and hit you, teleporting here and there. But he occasionally throws 2 balls in a bit of a wavy pattern. But then he can do this where he'll just create enemies out of the ground that will either dissipate with time or you can shoot them yourself. And when they're going up and down, he likes to teleport above you and try to just basically teabag you to death. Towards the latter half of the fight as well, I think you can create clones that will just throw orbs at you, but I might be thinking of his Megaman 8 fight. I guess we'll find out here in a moment. Yeah, this is it. He throws homing balls and then he creates clones that will do the same. Still easy with his weakness, but I think with his weakness in Mega Man 8, he was easier. That fight can be troublesome, but I couldn't even recommend just using the Mega Buster for it. In that regard, Astroman wouldn't be a bad first Robot Master. The big thing as well that this game needs to make that a little more straightforward, though, is E-Tanks, because this game completely lacks them, which really sucks. I don't like that Mega Man 8 did that. I don't like that this game did it. But for beating him, we get kind of a cool ability. We get Copy Vision. Copy Vision, you create a clone that stands still and just mashes the fire button in front of you, which can be good for baiting certain bosses around or just creating a little like protective wall above you in case there's like enemies that are spawning in, but it's pretty limited in use. With that, we're now on to the final Robot Master, one of my favorite designs in this game. This is Dynamoman. Let's see. Dynamoman, the power generator in his body is too high to sustain the electric current from leaking out. That makes no grammatical sense. Let's see, Japanese data. He cannot withstand the power of the generator's body and spews out the electric current. He regrets his unreasonable retrofits. Okay. Good point, he's honest. Bad point, he's incredulous. He likes pump off and dislikes social intercourse. Japanese data, what do you have to say about that? Likes private power generation, dislikes social disposition. Okay. Man, yeah, that's much more interesting data for the Japanese version. Now, even though we only unlocked Dynamoman in this playthrough, if you beat Astroman earlier, you do unlock Dynamo, Pirate, and Tengu Man. It's just that I went through the stage in a very particular order. So this stage is interesting in that we got this conveyor belt gimmick, but the conveyor belt only activates when you step on it, and the longer you're on it in sequence, the faster it moves. So the best way to move on it is to just do repeated jumps. But there are times when you might want to use the faster pull of it in order to get to things. Like I think there's a CD later on the stage that falls from the top, and I think you're supposed to have it at max speed to get it, or maybe I have that backwards. Because otherwise it just falls into a bottomless pit. It was actually one that perplexed me in my younger days to no end on how to get. Base can take that top route if you use an ice wall, but Mega Man has to come this way, which isn't that much harder. Otherwise, though, get this, the stage's gimmick is electric hazards that will try to shock you. But they don't really do a lot of damage. Honestly, the stage itself isn't too bad until maybe the middle third, if you don't like a certain mechanic type in platformers like myself. But we do got a mini-boss here. I'm not sure this thing's name. In fact, let me check Dynamoman's stage, because it probably has that in the wiki. Apparently this thing's name is the Move Cannon. We got 4 portions to it. the cannons that are actually shooting at you, and they generate homing pellets or little goo things that can slow you down. And the generators that create more if you destroy them. Destroy the 2 generators on the top, then destroy the cannons, and you're good. This stage, though, you can really see the Super Nintendo is trying its best. Because, not for nothing, this is a pretty graphically intense, in terms of like sprite size and all that Super Nintendo game. So there's sometimes you just see a lot of sprite flicker or slowdown. The Game Boy Advance technically handled it a little better than this, but also it had awful screen crunch and worse sound quality. Honestly, this is gonna be weird to say, but I think Megaman and Bass is a game that could weirdly do with a remake in some form. I doubt they'll ever do it because the times they actually tried to remake Mega Man games, they didn't sell well. So, whoops. But, oh well, honestly, it would have been kind of neat to see them reach, like, Mega Man and Bass in the powered-up stuff, just to see what they could do with it. So here's where things get annoying. We have a little Pokemon Flash-style searchlight that will light up the path, but otherwise the rooms are completely dark. So you need to use this to just kind of figure out where things are, but don't rush, because sometimes there's spikes just out of view. You can light these areas up yourself with Wave Burner if you have it. But I actually didn't know that until I was researching after doing the main recording. Whoops. I guess in the meanwhile, because that's about all the stage now has to offer, something I want to talk about that I think is kind of funny. So for context, this is being recorded on May 24th. The PlayStation Showcase was today. That Snake Eater remake looks good. Phantom Blade Zero looks neat. All that. Spider-Man 2 looks amazing. Blah, blah, blah. But what I want to talk about is Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom is now 12 days old. I checked my Switch playtime thing. I'm at 100 or more hours, so that means I'm between 100 and 105. 12 days is only about 300 hours. So I've spent about 1/3 of my life since that game released just playing it. And another third is probably just sleeping, so... I'm turning to dust. 15 shrines to go, though. Alright, time for Dynamoman. Dynamoman kinda sucks, I will not lie. So like Magicman, Dynamoman likes to dash back and forth across the room, and he can, I think, shoot out little waves of electricity that kind of track high, low, and middle. You need to slide over the middle ones, jump over the low ones. It's points like that where using copy vision is really good because you get a lot of shots in pretty quickly. You can also do this attack where he jumps and creates an arc of electric bullets that copy vision can also distract and make home in on them instead of you. The really annoying things towards the latter half or third of his HP, where he'll jump to the top middle of the stage, like his intro thing, and just massively recover health really quickly. He can recover easily half his health if you're not quick about destroying the little tendrils to the left and right of him to free him from that, and he can do that multiple times. Mega Man bosses should not be able to heal at that rate. Do it like Shade Man or Magic Man, sure. Dynamoman kinda sucks to fight because of this. Copy vision's also just not the best weakness unless you get him locked in a corner doing an attack like this, and even then he's not vulnerable for a lot of it. That fight can be rough, although I do like his death animation. I like how the orb breaks. Dome, that's the word, not orb. And for beating him, we get kind of an interesting ability. It's very straightforward and to the point. We're gonna get the ability Lightning Bolt. You pause wherever you use it, and you rain down lightning across the entire screen. It's essentially a screen nuke you're completely invincible to. With that said, it is very limited in ammo without using things that reduce ammo consumption. It's good. It can be used to stall in midair over here and there, but it's just not the greatest. There's like one boss fight that's not the outright weakness of that I can recommend using it on, but even then, because of how that stage works, you might not want to use it until the actual boss fight at the end of the stage. But we'll talk more about that, I think next part. And this is us destroying the 8th lock, and whoops, I went the wrong way in the teleporter. Thankfully, the screws do not, bolts rather, do not permanently despawn, I think, unless maybe you leave the stage, period. Now that we've destroyed all 8 locks, the castle is now open to us. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this out here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we start off the King Castle. See you guys then.